Alright, this is a take apart guide. We're going to be repairing iPhone 4. This is a Sprint CDMA. You can easily tell the difference between CDMA GSM by looking at that last number. It says 24, 22. The GSMs say 2380. The easiest way to mess something up while repairing any iPhone is disorganization with your screws. We have these fancy little trays we buy at Michael's craft store. Cost $1. Keeps all your stuff organized. We need for the job Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, iPhone screwdriver, pentalobe or pentacle, usually what they're called. Usually come with the repair kits that you get sent when you buy a screen. And we have a replacement screen. And I'm using metal spudger instead of a pry tool. Since the screen's already broken, I don't really need to worry about scuffing it up, taking it off. And also, just to make it a little easier, heat gun. This is the Martha Stewart, purchased for $20, also at Michael's. Alright, first thing you're going to do, 2 screws on the bottom, pentalobe screwdriver, I place these generally in the bottom of the tray. I take the back, press a little, slide it up, should come right off. Set that out of the way. Now to keep these organized, I try to always put the screws in the exact same spots, and they correspond to the different layers of the phone. This first layer down here, second layer right here, third layer right here, fourth layer right here, and then the camera top items up here. Do this every time, get pretty quick at it, and you don't have to worry about putting screws in the wrong places. So first thing we're going to do, take the battery, unscrew the battery screw, put it right here in the second layer. Be careful when popping the battery cable up. Sometimes you see people get their fingernails up under the battery connector and pop that off the board. That can be repaired, but it's a little difficult. Don't use a pry tool. Just use your fingernails. That's all you need. Get the battery out. There's this pull tab. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it just rips off. If it doesn't want to come, that. Just use a pry tool. Pry it up gently. Be careful not to puncture the battery. Set it off to the side. Kind of fold this tab over, stick it to the adhesive where the battery was at. One thing you don't want to do before putting the screen on is test the screen. So I like to take these 5 screws out first and remove this plate covering the flex cables. Just using your fingernail, just go to the top. Just loosen that, pry it off. Camera comes off with that sometimes. Alright. This is your LCD connector and your digitizer connector. So you can pry both of those up and fold them out of the way. Take your new screen, face it the opposite way, and just plug it in. Take the battery, plug it back in the battery connector. Power the device on. Just powering up, LCD looks good. The reason you want to test this out is a lot of places will not take the screen back once it's been installed, and a lot of people will ruin their screen while they're installing. This is a good way to know if it was you that's at fault for the screen not working or if it's a defect in the screen. Alright, it's powered all the way up. Test the touch. Touch seems to work fine. Just take the battery out, set the screen back off to the side. Alright, next thing we're going to do is take the screws off that are holding the charging flex cable. Place them on the third level. Unplug the flex cable. It's adhesive holding it down. Just pry it up. And unplug the rest of the flex cables. One mistake you see a lot, people try to do it themselves and then they bring it in to me to get it fixed, is they'll try to pry these up with a tool. Don't do a tool, just use your fingernail. There's a lot of little components on the board right here that you can easily break off the board. It's make your iPhone not work anymore, so try to avoid that. Alright, we'll go back to the bottom of the board. Take the screw off to release the antenna. Again, unplug the antenna with your fingernail. Take these two bottom screws out holding the loudspeaker. Just pull the loudspeaker out. Set it off to the side. There's a little black triangle. People lose this all the time. Just be careful. Your phone will go back together without it, but you know, I just like to have all the pieces left when I'm done. So bottom two screws, bottom of the tray on either side. Bottom left screw here. Place on the second level. So go back up to the top. One screw here. put it even with the bracket and the other 5 screws that were holding the bracket down here. Again, using your fingernails. This little antenna piece. Unhook this antenna here. There's a little white component right above it. Right here. That is for the Bluetooth. If you damage that during the process, your Bluetooth will either not work or it will have to be right next to your Bluetooth device to connect. So be careful with that one. One big mistake I see a lot of people make doing the repair themselves is there on the CDMA version there is a black piece of tape right here, and underneath it is a screw. That black tape off, and you see the screw. I see a lot of people forget about that one and try to rip the board out because they can't figure out where it's still connected, and that damage, and sometimes your Wi-Fi won't work anymore. Put that next to the camera. A little antenna piece. And on CDMA, you have these funky looking screws here. Get them off with the flathead. There's 3 of them. First one goes on the second level. Middle one. Just the middle level. Top one. Up on the 4th level. Alright, so we have all the screws out. Just move the flex cables off to the side. You can just pull the logic board out. Set it off to the side. Vibrating motor has to come out. Just use your flathead. It's just adhesive under there, and just pry it up. Alright, another thing people don't realize when they're taking it out is there is another piece of black tape right here, and there's a screw underneath it. People miss it a lot, and they cause damage to their device while trying to rip this old screen off. So make sure you take that tape off before you get the 4 corner screws. Alright, just take the 4 corner screws out. To set them all together. There are 6 side screws. You don't have to take these out all the way, just loosen them up 2 to 3 turns and leave them in there. They're kind of a pain to put back on, and people lose them a lot. So If you just leave them in, makes it easier. Alright, now the screen's ready to come out. There's adhesive down here and up here holding it in. If your screen's already damaged, not a big deal to pry it up. You're not really going to hurt it anymore. Just be careful of the flex cable over here for the home button. It's on this side. Try not to damage it when you're taking the button out. Sometimes people will put packing tape over the screen until they can get it fixed, and they'll tape the button down. When you rip it out, it rips the flex cable for the button, so make sure you take that tape off first before you remove the screen. You can use heat, use a little heat gun, makes it easier to pry up. Or if you're just trying to change out the home button, you don't want to damage the frame, you don't want to damage the screen or scratch the paint underneath if you're trying to save the screen. Use this little iPad pry tool. I always try to save the adhesive that's already on there. It's always usually pretty sticky if you're not missing glass up anywhere on this areas. If it's still covered in glass here, a lot of times you can just scrape the tape off and peel it off, and the glass will come off a lot easier. One thing people often forget on their old screens, unless your new screen comes with it, front-facing camera holder. It kind of centers and steadies your front-facing camera, make sure it's pointed in the right direction. It can be a little off if you don't remove this and put it into the new phone or on the new screen. And right here, your windscreen for your ear. People forget to put those on, and there's nothing blocking dirt and debris, pocket lint from going into your ear speaker and making it rattly and fuzzy. So if your new screen doesn't have this, make sure you take these off and attach them to your new screen. Take this off with the flathead screwdriver, just kind of pry it up a little. If you don't have it, if your screen broke up here and you don't have it anymore, no big deal. Just try to line your camera up straight when you're putting the new screen on. Easy way, you can just take your old frame and just pop it in the hole. I always like, since you're getting a nice fresh screen on your phone, I like a nice new ear screen. So we always try to replace these when we're replacing someone's screen. Easiest way to attach it, just use double-sided tape. Clip off a tiny bit. As you can see, there's a big space for the windscreen to go. Just place it on the side, not blocking the hole. Alright, next you're going to put the new screen on. Make sure you take this little plastic protector off the back of here. If you don't, after a while, some of the images can burn onto the screen, and then you'll have to replace it again. I don't know why it does that. I've just seen it happen a few times with when someone tries to replace their own and forgets to take this off. Alright, this is where most people mess up on their repair. You want to feed the digitizer and LCD cable through the hole. There are little tabs right here. If you can see them on the camera. Right here, this little tab will get caught in the hole if you're not paying attention. Make sure that feeds through before you pull the rest of the cables through. And just work the screen in. Use a flathead screwdriver to maneuver around the washers. All right, make sure you're flush all the way around. Phillips screwdriver and tighten the side screws. Alright, next you're going to put the corner screws back in. top right corner can be a little tricky. Just gotta finesse it. Try to line it up in there right. A lot of do-it-yourselfers will just leave it out. I'll just spend the extra couple minutes if it's just not wanting to go in there. Alright, take your vibrate motor, line it back up in your frame. Your logic board. Make sure you keep your flex cables out of the way. A lot of people will miss this power flex and it'll go underneath the board and then we'll rip it trying to get it out of there once they've already got it screwed down. This little tab right here, the board hooks under the tab. Makes it easier to line up. Just hold it down in the middle, and I try to put the top right screw and the bottom left screw in to hold the board down. Board's in place, it's down firm. Now again, once you get to this point, I would test the screen again. Make sure that it turns back on. Make sure you didn't damage the LCD upon installation. Phone comes on, so we'll take the battery back out, continue putting it together. Little gold piece. Just back up under the camera. Just a little piece of tape, if you didn't lose it. Put your camera back in. Now if you'll notice the difference between the LCD cables and the digitizer cables for the replacement screen versus the stock screen. The stock one has these little foam black pads on it, and this replacement one does not. What will happen a lot of times after you replace it, since there's no pad on there, you will bump your phone or drop your phone, and this LCD cable will come loose and your screen will go black. You'll be able to hear the phone ring, you can do anything on it, but you can't see anything. People panic and then bring it back into the shop when all they had to do is open it back up and just pinch that back down. What we do a lot of times, again, take this double-sided tape, just cut out a little piece. It's about as thick as that foam pad, and I'll just put it on that LCD connector. And when you put the clip down, holds it in place better. This piece goes down over the top of that funny screw. A lot of people put it under that screw and they end up with extra pieces. Just make sure you put that big one in first. The loudspeaker in. There are 4 clips right here. Try to put that end in first. And then push the bottom down. Then hold it while you screw bottom right screw in. The little triangle piece, if you haven't lost it yet, put it back in place. Bottom left screw in. Throw these other 2 funny screws in, one in the bottom right. It's very important that this screw goes in all the way. The battery connector is screwed down onto that screw, so if it's not in all the way, a lot of times your phone may work when you first complete the repair, but after you bump it, the battery cable will come up a little bit and it will only work when it's plugged in. So if that's happening to you, make sure that you screw that one down all the way. Wind the antenna back through this little clip and plug it in. Make sure it's lined up right when you plug it in. If it's not lined up right and you just try to squeeze it down, you're going to mash that antenna connector, and that's going to destroy that. You're not going to get service anymore. The flathead screw in the middle. Plug the charging flex cable back in. Place the bracket back down, and the holes go in the bottom of the bracket, not the top. So if you're putting the top on, if they're towards the top, then you're putting it on wrong. This little piece here goes over the antenna. Just fold the tab back from the battery. Place your battery. Plug it back in. Bottom screws go back in. That's it. Nice working iPhone. Now that was going a little slow. It took about 40 minutes to do. Generally can do them less than 20 minutes. Sometimes 15 or 10 if they've already been replaced before. But that's it. That's all there is to it.